So, welcome to Jim's overcast, windy and cold allotment. Okay, so it's time to put the trees in for onto the frame. Now what I'm going to do is effectively measure the width of this, and then what I'm going to do is effectively cut it into three. So I'm going to have kind of, if you imagine it in thirds, I'm going to have one tree in the middle of a third here, and then obviously one tree in the middle of the middle third, which is obviously going to be smack bang in the middle of the posts. And I'm also going to have one at the end here, you know, in the middle of the last third. Now what that's going to enable is each of the trees will then have a third of this framework to grow up, so that, you know, there'll be plenty of room either side. So I'm looking at kind of a metre and a half either side of the trees. Sorry, apologies for the wind. Across this frame. So what I'm going to do is measure that out now and dig the holes, and I'll show you how I'm getting on. Okay, so it's a bit windy today, so it's not possibly the best weather conditions to be doing this in, but what I've done is I've dug the hole so it's at the right depth of where the original soil level went. If you remember, I said that when I put it into the pot, the soil level wasn't quite as deep as it was originally. So what I've done is I've dug it slightly deep, so I've dug about a 2 foot deep hole, and basically what I've done is I've got the tree so the branches best I can line up with the wires, and orientated the tree so that the branches are in the right orientation to go along the wires, and I've spread the roots out around the bottom of the hole. I've loosened the soil underneath the hole, and I've also enriched the soil with some Miracle Grow compost. Manure would be good, but unfortunately I don't have any at the moment, but that would be a better option. Now what I'm going to do now is basically water the hole with some water, and then I'm going to fill back the hole with some soil so that the roots get sort of bedded in really well. So I'll do that now. Okay, so that's the tree in, and as you can see, I've trained these top two branches. Now if the branches are sort of bendy enough like these, you know, you can get them to sort of bend down. What I suggest you do is start the first tie around a foot away from the actual trunk of the tree, because what you don't want to do is put too much stress on the branch. Now this one here I'm hoping will grow along here, and then this one I'm hoping I'll be able to grow across there. There's one sort of little bud here, possibly one here as well, which will make the one to go along there. That one's obviously trailing along there. Again, as you can see, I'm about sort of, I don't know, about 7 inches or so away from that, but because it's going up, I was able to do that. In the middle here I've not got any branches that I can use, but there is some little shoots on the side, so hopefully one of these will bud. If you can see, there's a little teeny one in there. Hopefully that will be able to go that way. Now this one here, I've got one bud on this side here, which I'm hoping will grow this way. This one I'm hoping to pull down to grow along here, and then this one, I've got this one here which I'm hoping to grow along like that, and then this one here, or there's possibly one in there as well which will grow along here. Now because I've cut the tree down at the top now, this is going to encourage the tree to send out these additional shoots. So all being well, in the next few weeks, as soon as it's got its roots established, it will start to send out sort of more shoots. Now this branch here has actually died back, this one, so what I've done is I've just tied it down for now, but I will eventually, as soon as this growing tip starts to grow here, what I will do is actually cut that branch back and then continue that growing tip along, and that one's obviously going along there. So that's the first tree in. This bottom branch here, I'm just going to take that off because that's not required. And basically what I need to do now is anything that's growing in the wrong place or in the wrong direction, cut that off, which will then encourage the tree to send out other shoots, and hopefully they'll be in the right direction and at the right height to train along the frame. So that's the starting of the cherry tree. I'm going to put the pear tree here and the apple tree over here in exactly the same way as I've done this. Just one other quick note, as you see I've used a bit of, rather than putting the cable tie directly around the trunk of the tree, I've used a little bit of hose pipe with a cable tie around inside it, so there's still some movement there, and then I've used a cable tie on tight onto the framework. Exactly the same way here. I've shown you a slightly different method where I've got the pipe where the tree is, and then the cable tie is not so tight, as you can see it'll move. Here I've used cable ties, but again they're quite loose, so they're not actually tight on the tree. And then at the top here, even though I've used cable ties, as you can see, they are loose and they will move about, but that's more than enough support to hold the tree in its place. What you don't want to be doing is putting anything too tight on the tree. The tree needs to be able to effectively breathe inside there, if you like, so it needs to hold it in place, but at the same time the tree needs to have some movement, so it's not constricted in any way, shape or form. Okay, so now I've got the two bushes in, and these are the Josterbury bushes, and you can see I've trained the bottom branches in exactly the same way as the tree, tied it in there and in there and in there, obviously loosely so the plant can still move, but you know, it's holding it down now. I've had to cut quite a few branches off at the bottom there, and this again will encourage further branches to grow out, and obviously there's various buds coming up, so what I'll do is rather than taking all the buds off now, I'll leave them on, and then a little bit later on when they start to sort of shoot into sort of growing buds, I'll remove some of the other ones to make room. Now there's the tree you saw on the previous one, and there's the second bush, which is exactly the same. Now the problem that I've had, and we're a few days on now since the first clip that I showed you, this is the next hole that I dug, and I've also dug the other hole up there, which has actually been refilled in now, but if you can see at the bottom of there is actually solid rock. Now what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to sort of dig it out a little bit bigger than the tree, and then what I'm going to do is use an SDS drill and try and get through this rock that's at the bottom, because basically the tree's going to send down a tapping root right down in the middle, and if it can't send down its tapping root, it's not going to be able to support itself, both sort of physically support itself and also from sort of getting water and stuff. You know, it's not going to be able to feed itself properly. So what I'm going to do is get a drill and try and break up this rock at the bottom and dig it out, which is not going to be an easy job. But that's basically why I've not got the final two trees in. But as soon as I've dug that out, I'll do another video in a week or so and show you how things are getting on. But basically I've got the middle tree in, which I've seen in the two bushes, which are obviously more sort of more shallow rooted than trees. The other reason obviously is I don't want a tree with shallow roots, is it's going to send its roots sideways, which will go into the vegetable plot, which obviously is to be avoided. I want the tree to send its roots straight down rather than going sideways. So that's where we are at the minute. Unfortunately, because of the weather, I've not been able to do a lot this week to it, but that's the trees so far. So as I've explained in the past, I always buy my cucumber plants. Basically, they're not the easiest thing to germinate, and they're also sort of quite easily damped off when they're in the really early stage. So I always find from a sort of financial point of view, you're much better off just buying some plants, and I managed to get some today, or at least my wife did, 3 for £5. So really, when you consider the seeds are kind of £3, and you're likely to get out of one packet of seeds, you're likely to get 2 or 3 plants. You know, really, it's sort of well worth buying them. But basically, because I'm not going to be putting these into the borders in the greenhouse for a few weeks, what I'm going to do is just pot these up, and it's quite easy to do. Obviously, I'm going to be using a slightly larger pot because I'm expecting them to be in there for sort of 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm going to be putting them into one of these sort of shorter, sort of 6-inch pots. And basically, you need a a good quality compost. I've just kind of put about sort of 3 inches or so in there. Now, the one thing with cucumbers, you may be tempted. I mean, you can see the rootstock there. Really, it's ready to go. Now, at the bottom of a cucumber, you can see these sort of like little root bits coming out of the bottom. What I recommend is, if you saw them, you might be tempted to plant it a little bit lower. But the problem is with cucumbers they are very prone to damping off, and basically what that is the bottom part of the shoot here will start to rot, and basically the plant will die because of that. So don't be tempted to plant them any lower than they are originally. So I'm just bobbing that in the top there, and all I'm going to do is just put some soil around. I mean, this is a reasonably large step up from, obviously I've gone from a sort of 3-inch pot up to a 4-inch pot, but what you need to do with cucumbers is not overwater them. As I say, they are quite prone to sort of damping off and stuff like that, and you can sort of quite easily sort of damage the plant. You're much better off sort of letting them run dry a little bit rather than sort of keeping them too wet. Now I'm going to firm that in reasonably hard, not too hard, but as you can see, I've kept it pretty much at the same level as it was in the original pot. Obviously bobbing your label so you know exactly what it is, but reasonably obviously it's a cucumber anyway. But cucumbers are of the gourd family, and as you can see the leaves on there, if you compare that to a courgette plant, as you can see they're reasonably similar. That's a courgette plant, and also if you look at a pumpkin plant, as you can see that's also quite similar. So all of these plants are from the same family. You've got the sort of cucumbers, gherkins, courgettes, pumpkins, all of these, and sort of obviously the squashes as well, like butternut squashes and winterfest squashes and stuff like that. And all of the plants look very, very similar, so always make sure that you put your label in. So what I'm going to do now is just plant up the other 5 plants. I'm going to grow 6 of these this year. Now, what you can do, if you are concerned about sort of damping off, what you can do is actually grow these cucumber plants in a sort of big pot. You need something like probably about 10 or 12 inches, so it's kind of obviously a lot deeper than that. And rather than watering it from the top, you plant them in pots, 10-inch pots, and then sit that pot in like a tray, and rather than watering the plant from the top, you water it from the bottom. Now this is a technique that my father uses, which is which is very successful. And the other thing is as well is it kind of reduces the the sort of the maintenance as well, because really you only need to sort of top up the tray once or twice a week, possibly in the hot weather, possibly perhaps 2 or 3 times a week, and then basically the water will sort of so the plant will take the water from the bottom, and also you get this other effect called capillary action, where the water will actually climb through the pot. So as long as you've got the bottom sort of half an inch or so of the pot covered with water, the water will then go up, and the cucumber will also put its roots down obviously into the water to collect the water and that from the bottom. But what it will do is it'll stop this top part here, which is quite prone to damping off. It'll stop that from getting wet. Now I've typically plant these in the borders in the greenhouse, and last year I did get 3 of the 8 plants that I put in did actually damp off at the bottom, basically due to overwatering. So if you're thinking of having cucumbers and also tomatoes in the same bed, obviously tomatoes aren't prone to this, and you need to keep tomatoes really well watered. If you've got 2 plants that are sort of planted close together, and obviously one needs water a lot more than the other one. It may be an idea for you to try that. The other thing you can possibly do is plant them in pots like this and then bury the pot up to sort of there, and then rather watering the pot, water the ground around it, and that will have exactly the same effect. But as I say, my father always puts these in trays and waters them from the bottom, and he's never had anyone damp off, so that's possibly a technique you could use if you had a problem with that in the past. Another plant that I'm going to be growing this year, which I've never done in the past, and it's a little bit of an experiment, is I'm going to be growing some chickpeas. Now these seeds are from Frenchie, and these are, I always recommend Frenchie seeds, they are really good. This back to seed was I think a couple of quid, and basically you can plant them in two ways. You can either wait till sort of the back end of May and plant them directly into the ground, or what you can do, just to get a little bit of a head start, is plant them in the greenhouse and then plant them outside when they've obviously sprouted. Now what I'm going to do is use one of these sort of square cell sort of trays, and basically you need to be planting these around 2 centimetres deep, or sort of half an inch or so deep in the tray. So what I'm going to do is just gently put some compost. Again, I'm using a very fine compost, and with the chickpeas, just like peas and stuff like that, what you need to do is keep them reasonably wet whilst they're developing, because obviously what you want to do is make the seeds swell. So what I'm going to be doing is just filling all of these cells with compost, and as soon as I've done that, what I'm going to be doing is just making a small hole. And what I find easiest to do this is just use a pencil, or possibly a lollipop stick if you don't have a pencil to hand. And what I'm going to be doing, I'll just show you, just fill these last few up. Make sure that the compost isn't sort of too firm in there, because you'll be putting a little bit more over the top in a moment. Now if I just show you the actual chickpeas, the seeds are reasonably large, and what you can do is use slightly larger cells in this, but obviously, as I've explained, the rooms at a premium in the greenhouse at the moment. Obviously they're exactly as you expect them to be. They're actually chickpeas, sort of shaped and size. So all I'm going to do is just use a pencil and make a little hole in each one, which is around sort of 2 centimetres, half an inch or so deep, or 3/4 of an inch, shall I say, in each one, like that. And this really is just to get the chickpea started. You know, you don't need to have it in too much of a thing, because these will be going out quite quickly into the garden. So really, I'm only really giving them a bit of a starter in here. What you can do, just like peas, is give them a soak before you put them in. But I'm just going to bob them in here, and as soon as I've put them in, I'm just going to put a little teeny bit of compost over the top of them, and then as soon as I've done that, I'm just going to go over and just firm each one down. As you can see, I'm just firming them down with my finger, so the soil or the compost ends up just above the top. Now I'll continue to put the rest of these in. I'm only putting one seed in each cell, and then as soon as they've come up, basically these grow around sort of 2 to 3 foot high, and you need to be sowing them in the ground probably about 2 to 3 inches apart. And they are a very sort of pretty plant to grow. The foliage is quite sort of ornate, so you know, you can put these in a part of the allotment where you can actually enjoy the plant whilst it's growing, and then obviously enjoy the fresh chickpeas when they come. Okay, so it's time to pot up the purple sprouting broccoli again. Just like every other plant, as soon as you see the true leaf coming on, then you know it's ready now. Again, I'm going to be putting these into the square pots. These are the ones that are 12 for £1 from Wilco's, and they are basically 9 centimetres across. And I find these really useful for baskets and stuff like that. So what I'm basically going to do is basically pull out a clump. I'm not touching the stalk. I'm just basically putting my fingers underneath and pulling them out. I've already got a little bit of compost in there, so just drop that on. And basically what you want to do with the brassicas when they're like this stage is this is really the time you want to be getting them out and potting them up. Don't let them get too much bigger than this, because the roots will start to all go in sort of intertwine underneath the compost, and what you'll find is they're then really difficult to sort of separate without damaging the roots. So again, I'll just show you what I'm doing is sticking my finger underneath the plant and then sort of pulling them out like that, so I've got a nice sort of root ball on the end of there. Planting them again exactly the same height as they were originally. You can go potentially slightly deeper with brassicas, because as I say, they are a little bit weak towards the bottom, and you know, you can give them a little bit more support by planting them slightly deeper. I'll plant them slightly deeper in the garden when I put them out, which is what I was showing you last week with the normal calabrese, the green broccoli. Now the reason why I say put your finger underneath is if you with a plant, obviously, you know, I've got two there now, so what I'm going to do now is just by the leaves pull one away gently, and I've got a root ball on there. If you imagine with a plant, the reason why I say get the roots or the leaves, if you damage a leaf, the plant will grow another leaf. If you damage the roots, the plants will grow some more roots. If you damage the stalk, the plant is damaged forever. So basically what you want to do is do anything but pull the stalk. Obviously, you know, pull it out by its leaves if the roots will allow you. Don't put too much force on, but as soon as you've damaged the stalk, the plant will never recover. So that one's a bit twisty-turny, so I'm going to reject that one at this point. So again, I'm just sticking my hand underneath, sort of pulling them out if you like, and then what I'm going to do is grab the leaves and then just gently, slowly pull them apart. Now, I've not damaged the stalk in any way. The roots, there's not many roots on this one, admittedly, but there's enough. That'll soon recover with you know, from its roots, and then just bob it in, not too firm, just about the same height as it was in the other pot. Give it a tap, and what the tap does is just sort of rattles the compost around a little bit, and gets rid of any air bubbles that you might find inside the soil. Again, some compost. I'm picking it up by its leaves or roots. It doesn't really matter. I try to do it by the roots, to be honest with you, with brassicas. Well, with any plant really, because I find that's the least. But if you can't get if you can't get your hand under there, then obviously the leaf is the other option you've got. Now with brassicas, again, just like I was explaining with other plants, when you've got plants in the same family, the leaves are very similar. Obviously these are the purple sprouting broccoli. So if you have a look at the leaves, I'll show you some others in a second. Hang on. Obviously you know what the other broccoli looks like because you saw that last week. But that's the purple sprouting broccoli plant. Yeah. Now if you look at where have I put it? If you look at the curly kale, as you can see, those leaves again are very similar. Yeah. And the Nero kale, again, you know, they look very, very similar. So always make sure that you label them so you know what you're dealing with. Obviously, as the brassicas do get a little bit sort of older, this is the Nero kale when so this is the first batch that I grew. You know, obviously as they get older, the leaves do start to take on the characteristics that you're looking for, but it's only really till they get to kind of this stage you can tell the plant apart with any sort of accuracy. So when they're young, always make sure that you've got a label, and you sort of put them all together so you know what you're dealing with. Because I have in the past, I'm speaking from experience here, I have in the past mistakenly mixed up the brassicas, and I've not planted them where I've intended to plant them. It doesn't really matter so much because obviously, you know, you typically plant all of your brassicas in sort of areas, but obviously if you're planting sprouts, for example, sprouts tend to grow about sort of, I don't know, 4 foot tall, so obviously they'll go into a cage that's sort of 4 foot tall or something like that, or you know, if you're growing cabbage, that'll be a much shorter cage to protect them from the birds and etc. So you know, whilst you're planting them out, obviously you want to be doing it. Or if you do what I did, if I'm being absolutely honest, is rather than planting some purple sprouting broccoli and some green purple sprouting broccoli, it was all green one year. And what I'd done was given away all of the purple to somebody, and thinking that I'd given them a combination of green and purple, and so I'd got all green and the other person got all purple. So it's easily done. So obviously always make sure that you've got your brassicas labelled, just like with your gourds. When the young plants like this, they all look pretty much the same and they can be easily mistaken, so for each other. So always make sure you keep them all together, you know, either in a tray or just in an area in the greenhouse, so you know exactly what you're dealing with, and always stick a label in. Obviously when you're planting out sort of 40, 50 of these, you don't want to put a label on each one, but keep them all together in a bunch, then you know they're all the purple sprouting broccoli. So in the last few weeks, the cherry tomatoes, which are these here, have sort of really come on, particularly this tray here. Now this is the seed that I saved from last year, so I've not bought this seed. This is basically saved from last year. Now I only really want probably about 4 of these plants, so what I'm going to do is just pot 4 of these up now. What you don't want to do, like a lot of plants, what you don't want to do is let them get too big. If you let them get too big, they'll become sort of pot bound, and they won't sort of develop properly if they get pot bound. The thing with tomatoes is they're quite sort of hungry plants, and you know, you want to keep them, you know, sort of where they're going to grow the roots properly, and sort of get them down. So I'm just going to put these in sort of little sort of 3-inch pots, and as you can see, what I did is I planted, if you remember, I planted 2 or 3 seeds in each one of the cells. Now this one here in the middle is just the one's germinated, and that's quite a nice strong one. And what I do find is if I can get it out, if you have a number of plants that but you only want a few of them, obviously I've got sort of, I don't know, 20 odd plants here, and I only actually want sort of 5 of them. What I suggest you do is select the strongest ones. Don't you know, sort of, don't pot them all up, because really, you know, room's at a premium in anybody's greenhouse this time of year. It's always nice to give plants away, don't get me wrong, but you know, if you can sort of minimise on your effort, and where I'm separating 2 plants here, I'll be taking basically the stronger one of the 2. Obviously that's come out with the roots. I know I'm holding the stem, but I had to separate them then. I was actually holding the leaves to start with. So as I say, pick the strongest ones, and they're going to give you the strongest plants and therefore the best yield. So I'm just going to carry on planting up. As I say, I probably need probably 4 of these in the greenhouse. We don't want too many, so what I'll do is I'll plant half a dozen up, and then later on when I put them in the greenhouse, I'll select again the best 4 of the 6, and then you know, to sort of grow on. But any more, obviously just share them amongst your friends on the allotment if they haven't got any. But I wouldn't suggest you sort of plant them all up. If you only need 4, you know, there's no point planting up 20 of you know, sort of 20 of the plants up. So that's the tomatoes. I'll show you the other tomatoes later on, but the Alicante tomatoes, I've actually ended up with sort of 20 odd of those, which I potted up exactly like, you know, like I've just shown you here. So that's the tomatoes finished for this year, germination wise, so they'll be planted into the greenhouse in a few weeks' time. So I hope this episode of Jim's Allotment has been of some use to you. Please don't get put off by the weather. You know, there's always plenty you can do in the allotment. You know, even if you can't get outside, there's always plenty to do in the greenhouse. And to be honest with you, this time of year, most of the as soon as you've got your potatoes and your onions in the garden, most of it's in the greenhouse anyway. So all the best, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye now.